Mathieu Darche addresses the media. We'll tell you what we learned from his press conference, plus the future of Matt Martin, and a former Islander enters the Hockey Hall of Fame. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey, and we have got so much to discuss. GM Mathieu Darche addressed the media in his pre-draft press conference. We'll talk about what he said and its impact on the team. Matt Martin announces his future, and a former Islander is headed to the Pro Hockey Hall of Fame. So all of that and more coming up on today's show. Let's start with Mathieu Darche. Darche speaking to the media on Tuesday morning, and a lot of takeaways, but the biggest one is this, and I don't think it should be a major shock. The New York Islanders are holding on to that first overall pick in this year's draft. They are not looking to trade it, and I think that makes the most sense. Why? Couple of things. Number one, you don't get the chance to pick first overall very often. So when you do, you want to make the choice. You want to have your pick of any of the available players in this year's draft. It's a special moment for the Islanders. It hasn't happened in 16 seasons, and they're going to take full advantage of it. Second of all, even if you do want to trade the pick, the best thing you can say 4 days or 3 days before the start of the draft is, we're not trading the pick, but I'll listen to any offer, which is essentially what Mathieu Darche said. So again, sort of subtly sending the message to the rest of the league, yeah, we're not going to look to trade this pick, but if you really want it, bowl me over with something. And again, he ended the statement with, yeah, we're going to keep doing our due diligence all the way through Friday. Yeah, due diligence. Okay, we get it. And you know what? That due diligence, if I had a nickel for every time he said due diligence in this roughly 20-minute press conference, I probably would have a few dollars there. Let's put it that way. But good for Mathieu Darche. He said exactly what needed to be said. And then he was asked, about trading back into the first round. That is the James Hagens question, directly or indirectly. And he did not rule it out. He said, I'm looking at everything. It depends, because if you move into the top 10, what does it cost you? I feel like if the opportunity warrants the trade, I'll try it. Or if there's an opportunity to do something else that improves the team. So not ruling it out. And I get the feeling that this is going to be sort of a last-minute decision as far as the New York Islanders are concerned. They will not make a deal to trade back into the top 7 or 10 or 5 or whatever it's going to be. They will not make that decision until draft day itself. They will see how the board plays out. Is James Hagens still available? Is there another player, if Hagens is not available, that Darche feels, hey, this guy is better than whatever it is we got to give up to get him, I'm all in. I'm going to trade to get, I'm making up an example, the 7th pick from the Bruins. We take Hagens if he's still there, and we move on. But I think it is really going to be, now they may work out some kind of a deal beforehand, and, you know, that deal may be contingent on a particular player being still on the board, but I don't think the trigger is going to be pulled until draft night itself, if a deal even happens at all. And I am wary of trading back into the top 10, and I'll tell you why. I don't want to give up too much, and I think Darche addressed this at his presser. I don't want to give up too much to get it. Now, you can somehow maybe do a win-win, trading away maybe an RFA or including one of the contracts you'd like to get off the salary cap as part of a deal that gets you back into the top 10. That's a win-win because you get the extra pick, whether it's Hagens or someone else, and you clear up X million dollars in cap space that allows the team to make a trade or sign a free agent or improve this team. And again, the trade may not happen right away. It may be a trade that you make in October or January or at the trade deadline next year, but it gives you the flexibility to make other moves. And we all know, everydayers know, that this team needs to add more offense, needs to get younger, faster, more skilled, and more difficult to play against. The one thing about goal scorers, they cost money, and you need cap space. You can't add a Brock Besser or a Nikolai Ehlers, or they're not adding Mitch Marner, I don't think, but just as an example, all those guys are going to cost you $8, $9, $12 million AAV. The Islanders cannot even come close to adding one of those players or a player like that without trading somebody away, and we'll see how that plays out. And Darche was also asked about the team's 4 primary RFAs. And those, they're going to be very important in the week leading up to this draft and free agency, which starts next Monday. You got Noah Dobson, Alexander Romanov, Maxim Siplikov, Simon Holmstrom. If you sign all 4 of them, you're probably using up nearly all, not all, but nearly all of the $20 to $21 million in cap space that the Islanders have left right now. And again, that leaves you with very little to improve your team. So what did Darche say? I'm still trying to sign all our unrestricted free agents. I've been talking with the agents. It's been a very cordial negotiation, but he also talked about fair value. And he said, you know, I don't want to underpay my players, but I don't want to overpay my players. And, you know, that is refreshing candor coming from a GM, especially from an Islanders GM after the cones of silence were over the organization under Lou Lamoriello, which worked in some ways and frustrated us in others. But look, I still believe that either Noah Dobson or Alexander Romanov is likely to get traded. Not both, but I think one of them very well could be part of a deal to free up some cap space, maybe get back into the first round, maybe add picks and prospects, or younger talent, which this team so desperately needs. But again, Darche, looking to be fair to the player, fair to the team, does not want to fall into the trap that Lou Lamoriello admittedly fell into, where he said, yeah, it's too much term for too much money, but we had to do it, kind of a thing. Well, if you can avoid bad value contracts. Because in the salary cap era, value is everything. If you're paying a guy $7, $8, $9 million a year AAV, you better get a performance that returns value on that salary. And ideally, especially with younger players, guys who are still on their entry-level contract, you want guys who will outperform their AAV. So if Isaiah George, for example, is up next year and makes the big club, you want him to equal or outperform whatever his salary, which is going to be at or close to the league minimum most likely. You want him to beat that. You want a guy on his entry-level contract or a third or fourth line guy or a third pair defenseman. You want them to give you good value. And in those rare instances, a Bo Horvat, a Noah Dobson, if he ends up signing that big contract. If you get, Matthew Barzal, for example, to give you 90 points next year, he'll give you the value that you're paying him for. And boy, the Islanders need that, because far too often under the last regime, we had players who were not able to play up to the level of their contracts. And that's when you get into trouble, because if you're paying someone to be your first line scoring winger and you're paying them $9 million a year and they give you a 45, 50 point season and stay healthy all year, that doesn't work. You've wasted a lot of money. You can't get that money back. You can't sign another $10 million player to replace him so easily. And that's how you just get stuck in the muddy middle. So some interesting takeaways. Looks like more and more that Matthew Schaefer is going to be that first overall pick, but don't write it in stone just yet. And some nice takeaways there from Mathieu Darche. All right, more to get to on today's show. Matt Martin announcing his future intentions, and he will still stay with the Islanders, but not as a player. We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet may be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love that it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL and use code LockedOnNHL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL and use promo code LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for fuel safety information. Matt Martin made it official on Tuesday. He is retired from the National Hockey League as a player. And congratulations to Matt Martin on a very productive career. Here is a guy who, unfortunately, will fall short of the 1,000 game mark. He'll end up with 987 career games, 14 seasons with the New York Islanders. Started back in 2009, 2010, went to Toronto for 2 years in the mid to late teens, and then returned to the island for the 2018-2019 season. He had 81 career goals, 178 career points, 1,168 career penalty minutes. And Matt Martin, to me, he will just always be the consummate Islander. That identity line, aka the best fourth line in hockey, absolutely set the tone for the Islanders and made them the team that went to back-to-back conference final because they were so difficult to play against. And Martin was great in the community. He was great on the ice. Not a lot of fourth-line players play that many years in the NHL, that many games in the NHL, and have the kind of impact that he had. So congratulations to Matt Martin on a great career. Meanwhile, his next career is also going to start now. Matt Martin will be a special assistant to General Manager Mathieu Darche. And look, Darche basically reiterated that Matt Martin is going to do a little bit of everything. He's going down to Bridgeport to work there. He's going to help with scouting. He's going to work on all kinds of different things with Mathieu Darche. And they played against each other, so they know each other. They had, according to Darche, a long conversation to try to figure out what the next move would be. But, you know, everydayers will recall I did say several times, really, that I expected Matt Martin to remain in some way, shape, or form with the New York Islanders organization. And whether it was in community relations or here as the assistant to the GM, it just makes sense the way Matt Martin's personality is, his work ethic, that he will be part of the New York Islanders organization going forward. And I wish him absolutely all the luck in the world. I think that Matt Martin is more than capable of learning the ins and outs of working in the front office and really getting the job done for the New York Islanders in that capacity. So it just makes sense. And here's what Darche said. I'm going to have him involved in basically every facet. He's going to be with us at the draft. He's going to be in our meetings. He's here right now as we're talking about the roster. We'll have him do some amateur scouting, some pro scouting, and he'll be going to Bridgeport. This is essentially like an internship. Not in the sense that he's not getting paid. Nobody said that. But he's going to learn on the job by doing. He's going to watch all these different facets of being in a front office in the NHL, figure out what he does best, what he likes most, how he could be most helpful. And I get the feeling that that Martin may work for Darche, and his role may very well grow and develop over the next couple of years. So, you know, it looks like Chris Lamoriello probably staying this year, but maybe this is his swan song, and maybe next year Matt Martin steps in and takes over in whatever role it is that he wants to take. I think that this is the start, potentially, of a really good future. And now the Islanders, you know, we talked about the popularity of the identity line. And they deserve the popularity that they got. But the popularity of the identity line is such that Cal Clutterbuck, now retired, broadcast team. Matt Martin, now retired, front office, a special assistant to the GM. We'll see where both of those guys go in their post-hockey careers, but congratulations to Matt Martin on a great career. He was a great Islander, and I am very happy to say that he will continue to be a part of the New York Islanders organization, and hopefully he will grow into that role and help this team, even if it's not on the ice directly anymore. Good luck to Matt Martin, and thank you for everything you've done for this team since you became a member of it a long, long time ago. And that leaves, by the way, Casey Cizikas as the last member of the identity line still active on the New York Islanders, and we'll see how much longer Zeke stays there. He does not have no trade protection, so we'll see what happens with Casey Cizikas. We've got more to get to on today's show. Another former Islander headed to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and then we'll also have our Islanders birthday of the day, a center from the Czech Republic who was with the Islanders in the late 1990s. We'll talk about his impact on the team and the impact of the player heading to the Hall. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So, congratulations are in order for former Islanders defenseman Zdeno Chara. Big Z got the call on Tuesday. He will be part of the Hockey Hall of Fame's class of 2025. And I don't think this is a surprise. Here is a guy who won the Norris Trophy in 2009, was the captain of the Stanley Cup winning team in Boston, won the Mark Messier Leadership Award, and was a 7-time NHL All-Star. And when I say NHL All-Star, that's the good kind, the kind that's tough to get, which is postseason. You've got to be, one of the top 4 defensemen in the league to get on those teams. He played in 303 games with the Islanders, started his career on the island, ended his career on the island, had 8 goals and 43 points with the Isles in the 2 stints combined. But look at this. No defenseman in NHL history played more games than Zdeno Chara, 1,652. 209 goals, 680 points. Was in 3 Olympics, 7 World Championships, 2 World Cups of hockey, won silver medals at the World Championships in 2000 and 2012. And congratulations to Zdeno Chara. From an Islanders perspective, it's bittersweet because here's a guy who started his career on the island, went to Ottawa, then to Boston, briefly to Washington, came back to the Islanders. When he was with the Islanders, he was young and adjusting on the way up and then old and hanging on the way down. But the one thing about Zdeno Chara, he's one of those what ifs. What if Mike Milbury didn't trade away every player who wanted more money and had a lot of talent during his era as Islanders GM? And I don't want to say it was all Mike Milbury's fault because he had no budget to work with. They weren't spending money at that point. But, Chara made his first All-Star team a year after leaving the Islanders. Last season on the island, 2000-2001. First All-Star team, 2002-2003. And, man, he was so big. Listed at 6'9", 250 pounds, could skate well for a big man, could move the puck. He definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame. And I remember one time at the old barn, Nassau Coliseum. I went to a game as a fan. Chara was injured. He was signing autographs in between periods. Guy's a foot taller than me. I mean, it was unbelievable how big Zdeno Chara was. And, on the way up, you saw all the potential, but he wasn't quite putting it all together yet. And we know defensemen usually take a little longer than forwards to to get into the, to adjust to the game in the NHL and to get into their primes. And then on the way out in his last NHL season, he was a big help to Noah Dobson. And everydayers know I am critical of Noah Dobson's defense. I think deservedly so. But Chara, who was a veteran who had seen it all, was so positionally sound and so big that even at, his age, he was in his 40s already at the time, he, A, mentored Dobson well, and B, was able to get himself in a position to cover up for some of Dobson's mistakes and kind of help Dobson cut down on those mistakes at times when he was there. So, the influence of Zdeno Chara still being felt right now by members of the New York Islanders, a well-deserved induction coming up this fall into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And congratulations to him. And great news there for the former Islander. I just wish he would have spent more time on the island as a member of this team. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 54th birthday of former Islanders center Robert Reichel. He was originally a fourth-round pick by the Calgary Flames in 1989, made his NHL debut with Calgary in 1990-91, joined the Islanders late in the 96-97 season and stayed for all of 97-98, had 25 goals and 65 points that year, and then spent 70 games with the Islanders in 98-99 before being dealt to the Coyotes, later played for the Maple Leafs, and then finished his career back in his home of the Czech Republic. 830 career NHL games, 252 goals, 630 points, 388 penalty minutes, add 8 goals, 31 points in 70 playoff games, although none of those on the island. His best game as an Islander, I think this is pretty clear cut. November 26th, 1997, Islanders hosting that other team that plays in Manhattan at the Nassau Coliseum. The goalies, Mike Richter for the Rangers, Tommy Salo for the Islanders. And our Islanders birthday of the day, Robert Reichel, opens the scoring in the first period. Ziggy Palffy and Sergei Nemchinov with the assist just a minute 52 into the game. Islanders go up 1-0. In the second period, on the power play, and this was a fight-filled game, Rich Pilon and PJ Stock went at it. You had some misconducts and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, all kinds of stuff. But on the power play late in the period with the Rangers' Pat LaFontaine off for hooking, Robert Reichel and Travis Green set up Kenny Janssen for a power play goal. That makes it 2-0 Islanders. And then in the third, Reichel scores again from Brian Smolinski to make it 3-0. And then on the power play later in the game with the Islanders on the with the extra attacker, Kenny Janssen and Travis Green set up Reichel for the power play goal. That made it 4-0. Alex Kovalov broke the shutout, but 17 saves for Tommy Salo in the win. For Robert Reichel, the hat trick, 1 assist. He was a +2. He had 4 shots on goal, and he did not score the game-winning goal. The only goal, he assisted on it, but didn't score it. But Robert Reichel, briefly an Islander in the late 90s, a tough time to be an Islander. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this busy off season. And it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we're back tomorrow. Just a couple of more days until the draft. We will have the latest rumors, any trades or moves that are made by the Islanders. We'll update you on that, and we'll get you ready for the draft coming up on Friday evening. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Keep cool out there. Stay safe. And, of course, let's go Islanders.